Hey everybody, so today I'm going to go through the Naming Ionic Compounds with Transition Metals Google form. So this is a review of the Edpuzzle video that you should have watched earlier, so if you haven't watched the Edpuzzle video already, go ahead and watch that, and then you can come back to this. So this is just kind of a review, and it's going to ask you to name some compounds that have transition metals in them. So ionic compounds are going to be compounds that have one metal and one non-metal in them. And the way that you're going to name these ones with transition metals is you should have some sort of Roman numeral in them that'll tell you the charge of that transition metal. And the transition metals, let me find my periodic table. So if you look at your periodic table, all of the transition metals are going to be the ones that are in pink on mine. So they're in the middle of the periodic table. So they start out with scandium, titanium, yttrium, zirconium, and then they end over here with zinc, copper, cadmium, silver, mercury, all those different ones. Alright, so the first question, it says, what is the charge on an atom of phosphorus? So if you go back to the Google slides that we did the other day about the charges of the different columns and stuff like that, you would see that phosphorus is in the same column as nitrogen, so the charge of that one is going to be -3. Alright. Number 2, or the next one, it says, which of the following is the compound manganese 2 chloride? Alright, so first thing you want to do is you want to look up what is the symbol for manganese. And if you look on your periodic table, the symbol for manganese is going to be Mn. Alright, the Roman numeral that is out in parentheses beside it, that's going to be the charge of that transition metal. Because remember, the transition metals can have different charges, but the Roman numeral 2 here is telling you that it's the charge on the manganese is +2. So what I've done on my sheet of paper here is I wrote down the symbol for manganese, which is Mn, and now I'm going to write the charge above it as +2, like that. Alright, so I wrote Mn +2, just like that, and now it says manganese 2 chloride. Alright, so remember, chloride is just the IDE ending for chlorine. So I'm going to find the symbol for chlorine on my periodic table, which is going to be Cl. Alright, and I wrote that down beside it, just like this. Alright, and now I'm going to find the charge of the chlorine. So the chlorine is going to be in the -1 category, along with fluorine and bromine and iodine. So I'm going to write -1 above it like that. Alright, so I've got Mn 2+, and then I've got Cl -1. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these up here at the top, so this 2, and then this 1, and I'm going to crisscross them and put them on the opposite one. So I'm going to rewrite this as Mn1 Cl2, just like that. Alright, so remember, you don't take the signs with them. You just take the numbers. Alright, and again, remember, if you write Mn1 Cl2, you don't have to write the 1, and they'll count it wrong if you do, so it's just going to be Mn Cl2, just like that. So looking at the answer choices here, it looks like A is the correct answer. Alright, let's scroll down here and look at the next one. It says, what is the name of the ionic compound that is formed between lithium and bromine? Alright, so if we have a compound, an ionic compound, that's going to form between lithium and bromine, the way that you write the name for it is you're going to write the name of the metal, and it already gave us that, which is lithium. And remember, metals are found on the left side of the periodic table, so it's most of the elements. So lithium is going to be the first part of it, and then we're going to take bromine, and we're going to change the ending to IDE. Alright, so instead of lithium bromine, it's going to be lithium bromide, which is going to be the second one here. Alright, the next one, it says, what is the correct formula for potassium sulfide? Alright, so potassium, you want to find the symbol for potassium. So looking at the periodic table, it's going to be K, just like that. Alright, so the symbol is K. Alright, and then it says potassium sulfide, and sulfide sounds a lot like sulfur, so you're going to write down the symbol for sulfur. So this sulfide is just the IDE ending for sulfur. So we're going to write K and then S, just like that. But we're not done yet, because we're going to have to do the charges. So the charge for potassium, if you look it up on your periodic table, it's going to be +1. All right, and so I'm going to write +1 above it, just like this. All right, next, I'm going to find the charge of sulfur, and if I look on my periodic table that I have, it's going to be -2, because it's in the category, it's in the same column as oxygen. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crisscross these. So I'm going to take this number here, and I'm going to put it on the sulfur, and I'm going to take this number up here, and I'm going to put it on the potassium. So it's going to be K2S1. All right, so remember, you don't take the symbols, the signs with them. All right, so again, remember, you don't have to write the ones. So it's just going to be K2S. Just like so. All right, so it's going to be K2S, which is option number 2. All right, next one, it says, what is true about the composition of ionic compounds? All right, so ionic compounds are going to be composed of one metal, one nonmetal. The metal is going to lose electrons. The nonmetal is going to gain those electrons. So it's going to be one element giving up electrons, the other one taking them in. So let's see if any of these sound true. They're composed of one metal and one polyatomic ion. No, we don't really know what polyatomic ions are yet. We'll get there. They're composed of two nonmetals. No. They're composed of hydrogen and a nonmetal. No. They're composed of a metal and a nonmetal. So it's going to be this one. They're composed of a metal and a nonmetal. All right, next one, it says, which of the following happens in an ionic bond? All right, so it says like charged, plus and plus, or minus and minus attract and pull together. So we know that's not true, because if you've ever tried to put magnets together, plus and plus and minus, they repel each other. All right, next one says one atom transfers electrons to another atom. That sounds pretty good. Let's keep reading, though. Two atoms share electrons equally, two atoms share electrons unequally. So this sharing here is a covalent bond. So it's definitely going to be this one. All right, next one. It says, which of the following options is the chemical formula for a copper 2 bromide? All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to look up the symbol for copper, and no, it is not CO. It is actually Cu. All right. So I wrote down the symbol for copper, just like that. So I've got Cu. All right, and now we are going to do the charge for copper. So what's the charge of copper in this instance? And if you didn't know, you could just look and see, okay, it gave me this 2 as a Roman numeral. So this is going to be +2, so Cu +2. All right, so I wrote that above there like that. All right, and now bromine, or bromide. Bromide is just the IDE ending for bromine. So I'm going to write the symbol for bromine down. And if you didn't know it already, you can look it up on your periodic table, and it's Br. So now we need the sign or the charge for bromine. So if you look on your periodic table, bromine is going to have a charge of -1. All right, so I wrote the charges above there just like this. So Cu is going to be +2 and Br is -1. All right, and now I'm going to do the crisscross thing where I take this number here, the 2, and I'm going to move it all over here, and then I'm going to take the 1 and move it over here. So it's going to be Cu1 Br2. So remember, you don't take the signs, you just take the numbers. So it's going to be Cu1, Br2. But again, remember, you don't have to write the 1. So it's just going to be Cu, Br2, just like that. All right, so Cu, Br2. And that looks like that is option C. So there you go. Click that one. All right, next one, it says, what is the charge of copper in copper IV chloride? All right, so to know this one, you have to know your Roman numerals, which the guy went over in the Edpuzzle video. So IV is actually going to be 4. Great job. So copper 4 chloride, and it says, what is the charge of copper in copper 4 chloride? Remember, the Roman numeral tells you the charge, so it's going to be +4. And remember, metals are always positive, so it's going to be +4. All right, next one, it says, which of the following options is the chemical compound sodium bromide? All right, so sodium, we're going to write down the symbol for sodium, and if you need to, you can look it up on your periodic table. So sodium is going to be Na, so I'm going to write that down on my piece of paper. All right, and bromide is just bromine, again, it's just with the IDE ending. All right, so we're going to go the symbol for bromine, which if you look it up on your periodic table is going to be Br. All right, so now let's do the charges. So if you look up sodium on your periodic table that we've labeled, it's going to be +1 because it's in that first column. All right, then you're going to look up bromine, which is in the same column as fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine, and you're going to do -1. All right, so yours should look something like this. We've got Na +1, Br -1. So now we're going to move those. We're going to crisscross. We're going to do Na1, Br1, and just like that. And remember, we're not taking the signs. We're just taking the numbers. And since they're both ones, we don't have to write them. So it's just going to be NaBr, which is letter B. All right, what is the charge on the iron shown in the compound below? So we've got FeBr3. All right, so I wrote it down here at the bottom of my sheet. All right, so if we look at this, there's understood to be a 1 here. All right, and before we move them, this 1 was above the Br as the charge of the Br, right? So the 3 here is going to be the charge of the Fe. But then you have to ask yourself, is it negative or is it positive? And then if you remember Fe is a metal, it's always going to be a plus charge on metals, or a plus charge on the first one in the compound. So that one is going to be +3. And again, how I got that is, remember there's a 1 to be understood to be here, and before we crisscrossed it, the 1 was going to be up here, and then the 3 should have been top over here, so it's going to be +3. All right, which of the following is copper 1 sulfide? All right, so copper 1 sulfide, let me get another sheet of paper, or I'll get an index card, that might be easier to see. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to write down the symbol for copper, all right, which is going to be Cu, looking up on your periodic table. All right, and this 1 after it, that's going to tell you the charge of copper. So that's going to be +1, all right? And then sulfide is just going to be the IDE version of sulfur. So the symbol for sulfur is, yep, you guessed it, S. All right, and if we look up sulfur on our periodic table, it's in the same column with oxygen. So the whole oxygen column is going to have a charge of -2. So yours should look something like this. So we've got Cu +1 and we've got S -2. All right, now we're going to crisscross. So the 2 that is above the S is going to go down to the bottom and go with the Cu. All right, and then the 1 that is above the Cu is going to go down there with the S. So it's going to look something like this. But remember, we don't have to write the S, so we're just going to write it as Cu2S, just like that. All right, so we've got Cu2S, and that looks like that matches B. All right, next one, it says, which nonmetal below usually takes a charge of -2? So if you look at your periodic table, all right, and mine isn't labeled, but if you look over here at the, the non-metal side, remember the noble gases here have a charge of 0. This whole column with fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine, they all have -1. And then anything in this column here is going to have a charge of -2. So of these options, the only one that is in that column is going to be oxygen. All right, next one, it says an ionic bond occurs when one atom blank an electron to another atom. All right, so we talked about this earlier. So an ionic bond is going to be when one atom gives up an electron or transfers an electron to another atom. All right, next one, it says, which of the following is mercury 3 oxide? So let's go through this, all right? looking at your periodic table, what is the symbol for mercury? All right, and you guessed it, it's going to be Hg. Why is it Hg? That's the Latin name for mercury. All right, this 3 after this is going to tell you that it is +3. So the mercury is going to be +3, so I'm going to write +3 above the Hg just like that. All right, now I'm going to write down oxygen because the IDE ending for oxygen is oxide. So I'm going to write down O just like that. And if I look at my periodic table that we labeled the other day, that's going to be -2. So we've got Hg +3 and then O -2. So now we're going to do the crisscross, where we take the 2 that was above the oxygen and move it down as the tiny number for the Hg, like so. Hg2. All right, and now we're going to take the 3 that was above the Hg and move it down like that. So we've got Hg2O3. Remember, we're not going to use the signs. We're just going to take the numbers. So Hg2O3. All right, and we don't have to rewrite anything. So let's look. Hg2O3 is what we're looking for. Looks like that would be B. All right, it says, what compound below is scandium 5 oxide? V is the Roman numeral for 5. So we're looking for a compound where the number on the other one is a 5. Oh, looks like there is 2 of them, which is C and D. But remember, the charge on oxygen is 2, so it's got to be D. And that was a little bit tricky. Sorry about that one. All right, so now it says match the Roman numeral with its correct number. All right, so if you remember correctly, V is 5. All right, so there's VI. So VI and I is 1. So VI would be 6. All right, V, that would be 5. IV, if you put a number like an I before the 5, that means you subtract it. So IV is going to be 4. I is just 1. I is going to be 3. II is going to be 2. II, Captain. And then VII is going to be the only one left, which is going to be 7. All right, so there you go. I went through every single question. It took me about, 17 minutes or so. Now click Submit to get your 100. View accuracy. Wow, I think I got 100. I got them all correct. Wow. Oh, no, I got one wrong. No, I got to go back and fix that one. All right, well, thanks for watching this video. I hope that you have a great day.